Dear me, my reading pace didn't half slow down, did it? Hi, and welcome back to the channel. I'm back to talk about what I've been reading. I didn't do one last month. I'm going to do one for this month that's just passed, so that's August and September if you're paying attention at all. And, work doesn't half get in the way of reading plans and TBRs and all that kind of stuff. Now, the good news is, I did read the books that I thought I was going to read. I haven't got through them at the pace that I thought I would. So my TBR was correct, but maybe, 3 months worth rather than one. That Alan fella from the Library of Alexandra isn't wrong. I know people think teachers get loads of time off and it's great and all that kind of stuff, but anybody that's doing their job right, it doesn't have to eat up all the rest of your time at night, etc. When it starts, you earn those holidays. Anyway, enough whinging about my work life, because I know I go, ugh, everybody has problems with time. You're alright, and you're here to find out what books I've been reading and what was good or bad about them. We'll start off with a book that I actually did a full review of, so that I can kind of start off short and snappy. And when I did the review, I actually didn't have this copy because I was reading an arc of it. Now, the book is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Sean Lawless, who happens to live not that far from me, but I didn't know that at the time when I picked it up. This is the lovely copy that I got from Broken Binding, and as you can see, I mean, it's an absolute stunner. And as I alluded to in my video review at the time, I thought I thought my wife would love it. My wife got her own copy, and she did love it. So I'm telling you now, like, I give it a lot of stars. I don't really do star reviews anymore, but this is something that I enjoyed a lot. It is a historical fantasy tale, but unusually or not, it's set in Ireland. Ding! And therefore I was sort of naturally drawn to it. Now, I'm not one of those people that knows an awful lot about Irish history, but even for me, there were names of people and events and things that I recognised from people in the background. It tells the story mainly of two families or two groups of people. One is the Fomorians, who are like fire magic wielding people, and the other are the two Abaddons, who are like warriors hunting people who hunt the Fomorians. Have their own magical powers, and within that, the one that we concentrated on is Fola, and Fola is a healer. On the Fomorian side, we concentrate mainly on Gormla, and Gormla is amongst, aside from being like a fire wielder or somebody that has prolonged life, she also is the mother, a mother of a boy who she hopes to be king. And what we have essentially in the story is the story of her wanting her son to be king, trying to support that by whatever alliances and means she has necessary. And similarly, Fola is trying to influence the destiny of the kingdom by infiltrating and going into some other powerful factions within there as well. Certainly it is low fantasy terms and so far, with more books planned in the series, but I thoroughly enjoyed the representation of mainly these two female characters. They are grey. They both have motivations and things that they have done, maybe that they're not so proud of, but they also have a desire to do what is right for them and their kin. And this greyness is something that I really loved. And like I said, I talk about this more in the review. So if you're reading it or you want to know a bit more about the book, I'd certainly encourage you to check out the review. But it's written in this kind of two-handed style, and they pass it off between what is happening in one place, what is happening in the other place. And while it does set up, like a lot of good first books do, the world, the politics, and the people that are there, it also starts to feel like it bleeds over, and the two stories and sides start to bleed like into each other to the point that it sets up what I hope to be a really exciting trilogy. So that is Children of Gods and Fighting Men. And just for one more look, this copy is gorgeous. Even goes blue on the hardcover. So pretty. Next one I'm going to talk about was part of a group read on the Grimoire Discord, and they were doing or had started a read along of the series before. I had read this book months ago, maybe April, May sometime. I'd read book 1 in the series, and it is the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. I'd read Emperor Silence there. Liked it a lot, had some issues with the start of the book, etc., but in general, couldn't wait to continue on. And here sure enough, is book 2. It is Howling Dark. Book 2 of the Sun Eater series in the US hardcover. Now, I'm going to have a bit of a whinge to start off with because I do love the artwork of these US hardcovers. And the British hardcovers were, by and large, on very limited release, but with different artwork. But you really couldn't get, especially the first one, and neither can you get the American version. The subsequent ones that you could get on Amazon at the time when I was reading it were these US style ones. Lo and behold, fast forward, Sun Eater's taken off a little bit, and well, you can get the hardcovers in Britain now of, you know, Howling Dark, Demon and White, with a new bloody artwork. I've got this one, got the next one in this. God damn it! Haven't said that. I really love the US hardcover art so much that I'd be collecting these ones anyway. Anyway, back to the book. Howling Dark tells the story of Hadrian Marlowe. Hadrian Marlowe has been kind of outcast from his kingdom. He comes from a regal background. This is all book 1 stuff. And he's forging his own way. He's forging his own path. In the last book, he went through his trials and tribulations to get where he is today. But now he's on a conquest to find an alien race that humanity is at war with. Except he can't find them. That's pretty much what this book is. Can't find them at the start of it. Doesn't know where they are, and he needs to try and make a connection and find them so that he can maybe influence and avert large scale destruction of life. With man's got good intentions now. From book 1, the whole way along, you're told that Hadrian Marlowe is the man who's responsible for murdering millions of these alien people. So again, you've got that to play with. It's from the outset of the very first book, you're told that, and here we have him searching and trying to do good and be good. And this is a book that talks about the alliances that he has, that he forges, the relationships that he has with the people around him, and then the events that happen along the way. Now, to say Howling Dark is fantastical is maybe selling it short, because I say fantastical, it's a sci-fi novel. I think the first book definitely skirted the line between sci-fi and fantasy. This one's definitely sci-fi. They're in space, they're traveling over large distances, there's cybernetics, there's AI, etc. throughout this book. There's all of that good stuff. And some of the things that happen in Howling Dark are drop the book. Stunning. The amount of times that you'll go through it and you'll go, oh my god, did that just happen? I need a second to think about it. It happens quite often. Now, it sort of happens in I would say in a pulpy way, but I don't mind pulp. I don't mind that excitement. It's almost like the rug pull at the end of an hour-long episode of TV, and you go, oh my god, I need to watch the next episode. I need to binge this immediately. And for a book that is as chunky as it is, and it is a chunky book, it doesn't half read fast because it propels you through it the whole way. The chapter lengths are quite short, so you never really get bogged down. You always feel like you're moving forward with it. And it's written incredibly well. I said it's pulpy, which kind of makes it sound like the prose aren't great, but I think the prose are fantastic in it. So, all in all, Sun Eater series is so much fun. Can't wait to read what's next. I'm just a bit worried about running out too quickly because Demon and White's a bit thicker, a bit bigger again. Great. But if I burned through that, Kingdom of Death's not as long. Ashes of Man's out in December, and then we've got to wait. I'm going to try and slow down. I'm not keeping up with the Grimoire guys in terms of reading pace because, you know, this is delicious. This is fantastic. And I really want to keep on going. Stretch it out as far as I can. Maybe to kind of resolve around the finish of the series altogether. There are also in-between books that I tend to read as well, like The Lesser Devil, etc. And that all sounds like good fun. So Howling Dark, terrific. Next one up is part of a group read that I am doing, and I'm continuing to do on Steve Talks Books channel, and that is the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey. Now, we've already recorded the live stream for this. It's amazing. I love the live streams of Robin, Leila, and Steve on it. I learned so much from everybody else. It's actually changing how I read the books, the whole process, making the notes, doing a bit of research, because there are links to, mythological stuff within these books or otherwise. And the book that we finished, should point out too, is Abaddons Gate. It could be Abaddons Gate, but let's go for Abaddons Gate. And this tells the story of, without giving too much away, kind of developments within the world, that there's an unknown foreign alien object that appears in the space, and they are in two minds to whether to go investigate or not. It's like a big gate, hence the title. And at the very start of the book, you're treated to the fact, spoilers just for the start, but that when somebody went through it, their head came clean off their shoulders as they went through it. So people are very wary about going through this gate. Is it a gate for people to invade their space? Is it a gate of death? They don't really know, hence the Abaddon bit. Abaddon's Gate literally means gate of hell, or gate of going into damnation. And we get the story told from a number of perspectives, but unusually for Abaddon's Gate in this time, we get a perspective of somebody that is malevolent or bad. We get the baddie perspective as one of the three that are there. So we get Melba, and we get Bull, and we get Holden, who has been the character who has been the hero some way, except he's a bit of a weeb. I'm not a big fan of Holden. I like reading the story, but him as a person, he's not very, he is very much the anti-hero in some ways, because he's not somebody that you'd really root for. Bull, as a mechanic and engineer, is somebody that you can kind of be excited to read. And the book itself, I think I described it like this: it's narratively and structurally weak. I think there are a lot of decisions made in the plotting and how they decided to tell the story that's within this book that are problematic. I don't think it works. It feels like the whole time the action's happening in somewhere else. The person here's talking about it, but it's actually happening over there. And by the time you get over there, they're talking about what's happening in the other place. It just doesn't seem to work. Plus, it also has that bit, what happens when you're telling multi-POV stories, that you have an event that happens, and then the next chapter you read goes back to about half an hour before that. So the event's already happened. You know what's going to happen at the end of the chapter. And if that happens once, it's fine. If it happens multiple times throughout the book, problematic. Having said that, thematically, I think this book is amazing. A bit like if you've ever watched The Wire, which deals with a different strand of life and the impact of drugs on that life. The Expanse is doing something similar to this. The first book was like a noir. The second one's like an abduction story. And this one very much looks at the role of religion and society in future society, or in future relations on Earth and Mars, etc. And the amount of allegory and depth that the thematic work weaves into this book means that while it's narratively weak, story is okay. Bits that are drawn out, it could have been done better for me. I loved the thematic stuff so much, and I made so many notes in ways that I normally don't make notes, that it might be my favourite book of the series so far, because that's the type of stuff that I really invest into, and the stuff that make you think after you've closed the book, snapped it shut, and went, right, we're done with that, on to the next one. And yeah, really enjoying reading Expanse, loving the read-alongs even more. Can't wait for this month's coming one, which is Spoiler Burn, which is book 4 of the Expanse. If you're reading along or fancy reading along and jumping into those chats, please do. They're amazing. Leila, Steve and Robin have so much more insight than I ever could in this, but hopefully I'm just trying to add a bit of what I see in it, because that's the beauty. Each person brings something different to a book that they read. So yeah, really enjoying my read along of this. I haven't talked about much Sat Pub, but I did read a major Sat Pub book this month, and it was The Hellborn King by Christopher G. Browning. Again, I was really fortunate to be able to spend some time in Christopher's company. I'd only started the book when I was doing that, when I did a live stream over on Steve's channel. It was Friday Conversations, and it spurred me on to keep on reading that book. And The Hellborn King, it's a funny one, because it's more like a military history book than a fantasy book. There are very light fantasy elements there, and it's again one of those things, a bit like Children of Gods and Fighting Men, that I think you're setting up the fantasy, or you're setting up the mystical and the magical here to really kick it in future volumes of the story. So you have a world that is set around a number of different factions. So you have the king of the region with his Bethards, and the king is struggling with the things that he's done. I think he's descended into drink and stupor, and the kingdom's going to rot around him. But he has these children underneath him. He has the Zergareth, he has Lucetta, and he has Trace's children, alongside Queen Charlotte, who's there in the background as well. All kind of being caught in the wake of a monarch or a king who really isn't paying much attention. The people who are running the country are his council, his advisors, and it's creating a bit of problems because the people who will be taking control aren't really involved in the decision making process. So there's kind of like a change of the guard happening there. Aside from that, there's the north. The north's coming. Winter's coming. Maybe. Anyway, with people who have been invaded and the Bethard family slaughtered them in. There's thousands and tens of thousands in conquest taking over the world, and they want to organise and rise up and take back their land and take vengeance and get justice for the atrocities that were committed against them. We have the stories happening there, we have the story happening here, and then we have all the people that are caught in the middle. And the book opens with, the prologue is quite famous for being catching, for want of a better word. There is something that happens in the prologue that I think makes you go, oh jeez. And it's not just the event, it's how it's told and the way the characters are portrayed that make it kind of juicy. And while saying that, I feel like oversells it a little bit. It definitely does. I kind of found myself reading the prologue and going, oh god, that was nasty, or that was thought-provoking. That's not usually what you see these characters do, and kind of putting it to one side. But unlike a lot of prologues, it links very quickly in with and drives impetus to the very first part of the book. You know how often a prologue's kind of something happens, and it's only when you're halfway through the book or coming towards the end you go, oh, that's what the prologue was about, or that's what it was linking to. This one very much leads into chapter 1 and what's happening there, and you get a good sense of what's happening in the world and where it's trying to take your attention. Now, it is a multi-POV. Sort of, for the first while, I would say the first third of the book, there's so many characters that you're getting the point of view from. I did have that problem of who is that, who they belong to. But because the POVs are chaptered, Gareth chapter 1, Gareth chapter 2, Gareth chapter 3, once it comes back round, by about, a third of the way through, I was like, right, I know who everybody is. This is fine. It does a very good job of setting that in. And while I was sort of going, why is this a fantasy? And I don't normally read historical military, I didn't mind, because there are themes, again, within here that are really interesting. I think it deals with trauma of war and PTSD kind of nicely and interestingly. I think this is a theme that's going to come forward again in time, and it's such an easy read. Like I say, I haven't read an awful lot over these past couple of months, and yet this one I read through quite quickly. It helped me get back in and get a flow back in, and it's not every book that you get to do that with. I was kind of struggling a bit with doing 2 chapters in a day, 1 chapter a night, that kind of stuff for a lot of days, which wasn't like me. And this one really spurred me on, and I did do the audiobook with this as well. The audiobook's very good, aside from one minor thing. And this might just be me. One of the characters, it's a male voiced person doing male and female, and I know that can sort of be problematic, and I really did enjoy the audiobook. But one of the female characters, it was one of those things, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Monty Python and Life of Brian, where John Cleese is doing the females who are stoning. It was that voice. I just couldn't disconnect it. I'm sorry, I really enjoyed the audiobook, but I just couldn't unhear it when I unheard it. Oh, I don't know. If anybody else has read the book and heard the audiobook, let me know if you had a similar thing happened to you, but that was definitely something that struck me. So I enjoyed Hellborn King a lot. I'm going on to read Wrathbringer, and I'm even doing another live stream with Christopher G. Browning end of October, which I'll try and stick a link to in when it's up, after the fact, if anybody watches it after the fact, to see if what else I can glean from other people and the author himself as to what he thought about Hellborn King. But yeah, I think you will too. Last thing that I'll talk about really reading is a book that was on my TBR that was a bit unusual for me, and it was not a fantasy book at all. You can, if you're only interested in fantasy science fiction, you can turn off now. But this was Glory by Novalet Bulawayo. And this was basically an anthropomorphized telling of the overthrow of the government in Zimbabwe. And you can see that I'm not massively through it. It's a bit of a funny book, and I will obviously talk about it when I finish it, you know, my next wrap up. But it's mostly like a non-fiction book, and for it to be anthropomorphized, I thought they would have stuck very much to how things are in the animal kingdom. You know, there certainly are animals that are in there. You know, the dogs are the soldiers because they obediently, you know, obey. Don't worry about how good or bad the person is. They're obeying. They will just carry out what they want them to do. And well, that's true. But in this case, you know, you've got goats, you've got cows, but they travel around in cars. Like, not how animals work. If you're going to tell a story using animals, why would you do that? I don't know, but I am enjoying it. It's a slow read for me. It's the kind of thing that I don't need to follow a narrative along so closely, because it's like a non-fiction book. It kind of, there are events that happen. There are characters that are in it that are interesting. The wife of the leader dictator, her own motivations, the leaders of the opposition, the people that are in there. The book has a language of its own. It's kind of nearly taught in English but translated using a lot of their sayings and words that are in it, that gives it this kind of very ethnic feel, which is interesting. And sure enough, like the cover is stunning. I'm a big fan of the artwork, etc., that's in it. So that's Glory, and I'll report back when I finish that. Coming up next month, a lot of continuations of these series, and I'd also promised to do Hero of Ages and Three Musketeers, I think, my last TBR. All that's still relevant, but let me know what you've been reading, what you've been getting up to, and see if you can give me some more inspiration, because like everybody else, I like my TBRs, etc., to be ripped apart and set out. Maybe it's something that you're doing differently for October, November. If you've enjoyed the video and made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.